has created some of the most iconic origin stories ever told, but they're also the ones responsible for the gin gold and water fumes thing. It's all about balance. Some DC origin stories we love, and some we still don't understand. Up first is Hawkman. Now, we have been gifted an explanation for his numerous backstories and never-ending lore, and that is because he is simply one guy that just keeps getting reincarnated. But before this was established, good luck. The character was just a little hard to keep up with, to the point where people started making detailed guides on his timeline. Then there was also the fact that two Hawkman characters merged into one during the Crisis on Infinite Earths event. There was just a lot of people handling the character, and they didn't always follow each other's lead. Now, with the latest backstory, everything makes at least a little bit more sense. The Phantom Stranger has led a lot of lives. Literally, one is canon now, but it's only a matter of time before someone else messes with his history. His current origin in the New 52 story is that he was Judas, betrayer of Jesus, and that makes him one of the greatest sinners that ever lived. Past origins include him as a fallen angel who didn't pick a side during the Heavenly War. Another is that he was Isaac from the Bible story, but not exactly the same. This time his son died because King Herod was looking for Jesus, and now Isaac hates Jesus and later tortured him. Another is that he was spared during biblical times but didn't want to be, but the angels didn't want to let him in heaven, so he has to walk the earth alone forever. And the fourth is that he was actually one of the last remaining parts of our previous universe. At the final curtain, he approaches those studying the end and then passes part of himself onto a new person, so when the universe is reborn, they also get a Phantom Stranger. In addition to his many backstories, it's also up in the air as to whether or not he is a villain. To me, it sounds like he started out as a villain, he did betray Jesus a few times, but later realized the error of his ways and became a sort of hero. Lots of people just choose to ignore many New 52 storylines, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see what sticks for this guy. Phantom Stranger is now connected to a villain called Question, but that wasn't always the case. Question at one point was a character that was thought to be a supernatural power, thought to be because it was never made clear. One of the only things that is now considered canon about him is that he has committed a crime bad enough to be considered one of the world's greatest sinners, part of the trio of sin with Phantom. We never know his name. Before being turned into Question, the guy was obsessed with power and having his name feared by all. As his punishment, he got his face taken away and he can no longer remember himself or his name. This was introduced in the New 52. Before that, he was just the alter ego of Vic Sage, but then Flashpoint caused them to separate and even have brand new different histories. This version of him isn't that bad, he just really wants to know who he is. I am hopeful for a name reveal, whether he's another universe version of an existing villain or a real historical figure. Supergirl's horse, Comet, was originally a centaur in ancient Greece that longed to be a human, and one day he ended up saving the sorceress Circe, and she told him that she would give him any reward. He, of course, asked to be human. So, how did he end up instead as Comet the horse? Well, she made the potion to turn him human, but she also made one that would turn him into a horse and accidentally gave him the wrong drink. The comic is like she went away for days to make this potion he had wished for, and then she came out with two. Why did she make two? He wished to be a man. Why didn't you just make the potion that would turn him into a man? Or if you had to make both, why didn't you just throw out the one that would turn him into a horse? You didn't need that one. It doesn't make any sense. And you spent all that time making the potions and there's no antidote? This whole thing never needed to happen. If she had never made the horse version of the potion, then I wouldn't have to live with the knowledge that Supergirl dated her horse, because that did happen when Byron eventually did become human down the line. Worm and Velvet are a duo of a worm and his metahuman, maybe. There is a duo of boy and worm. The boy is called Worm and the worm is named Velvet. Velvet likely created this human kid because he can create humanoid constructs capable of independent thoughts and actions. Likely he did this because he was supposed to be a spy for Peacemaker. The kid could stay in one place while the worm roams around collecting info. The worm also lives in the body's stomach. The boy and worm are separate things. The boy doesn't survive the end of the comic he was featured in, but Velvet the Worm does and joins Doom Patrol, accompanying them on later missions. So yeah, this all happened in Unstoppable Doom Patrol from 2023, which is not exactly a comic comic known for being normal, if that makes any of this easier to digest. Duela Dent's origin is confusing because she wants it to be. She has claimed to be the daughter of the Joker, Catwoman, the Riddler, the Penguin, Scarecrow, and Two-Face. She was first introduced as the Joker's daughter, but her last name is Dent, which belongs to Harvey Dent, or Two-Face, so now she is known as Two-Face's daughter for a while, until Robin figures out she's not the right age to be his daughter. She agrees and then just disappears. She appeared in the Teen Titans comic series, and she was planned to be revealed as a time traveler that gets reality warped one too many times and is driven insane. Unfortunately, we never got to see this, as the comics were cancelled. Technically, Duela doesn't want to be a villain, but she does fight a lot of heroes and lies all the time. She was later revealed to actually legit be the daughter of another universe Joker and Three-Face, a female variation of Two-Face. Is this a lie? You can literally never know what's real in these universes anymore, and turns out, neither can Duela. It's suggested that because her mind was warped so much that every time she switches Earth, her consciousness switches slightly as well, which is why she named so many different parents. She was just confused. Boss Glitter was the main antagonist of the forgotten DC series about the Heckler. He's a ruthless mob boss with a little bit of flair. He uses old Mardi Gras masks to hide his face and controls the city by planting a bunch of lieutenants that manage different parts of it for him. The problem is the Heckler keeps defeating all those lieutenants and throwing them in jail, so naturally Boss Glitter wants the Heckler to heckle no more. When his lieutenants fail, Boss Glitter takes the matters into his own hands and sends a bouquet of flowers to Heckler, who is in the hospital with a bomb in them. The Heckler does still survive though, and we don't hear from Boss Glitter anymore because the comics had bad sales, so the series was cancelled. So we never actually found out what his deal was, what is with the Mardi Gras masks. Why is Boss Glitter your mob boss name? We'll never know, and it does haunt me. Jay Garrick becoming the fastest man alive because he knocked over some water and inhaled the fumes? How does that make sense? The Flash character Jay Garrick was first introduced in late 1939 in Flash Comics 1. He was a brilliant student that had been working with hard water for years, specifically studying the gases emanating from it. One late night, while experimenting with separating the water's elements, Jay, the brilliant student, had the brilliant idea to smoke in the lab. He knocked over the hard water fume glass, and when he tried to clean it up, he fainted from exposure and woke up the fastest man alive. Through my research, I came across the debate that suggested that whoever was coming up with the original origin story way back when might have confused hard water and heavy water. Hard water is water with a higher mineral or dissolved metal content, and it's not particularly dangerous. Heavy water is used in nuclear power plants, and that makes it seem super mysterious. Maybe they thought because hard water technically has more minerals, it would just make you better. I don't know. Either way, becoming the fastest man alive because you inhaled water fumes is a very odd choice. Elongated Man also debuted in a Flash comic, and his original origin is also a weird science story. Ralph Dibny was fascinated by a particularly stretchy man he had seen at the circus as a child and was determined to make himself stretchy. He discovered that the performer liked drinking this soda called Gin Gold and figured, well, that must be the cause of his flexibility. So he started to experiment with the drink. He figured out that the main ingredient was a little-known tropical fruit, and that was what gave the performer his stretchy power. By isolating the essence of this mystery fruit and drinking that, Ralph became Elongated Man. Now don't worry, it's not all this mystery tropical fruit. There is an element of willpower too. These Golden Age origin stories might not make any sense, but they sure are entertaining. And finally, the Joker is one of the most iconic villains of all time, so it's no wonder why so many people want to leave their mark on his story. Unfortunately, that makes for a pretty messed up, twisted, confusing history. Speaking of which, I would love to know y'all's thoughts on the newest lore from Joker 2. Anyways, there are a few constants with the Joker's story, but often he ends up in acid and comes out looking the way he does. Who he was before, and even during the swim, is kind of up to whoever is holding the pen. In 1951's Detective Comics 168, the Joker had been the Red Hood, also a criminal, and one night he decided to rob a factory, escaping by swimming through the pool of chemical wastes. He thought he would come out normal, I guess, didn't, and to his delight, he figured out his new look was actually quite scary, and then used that to his advantage. In later versions, like The Killing Joke in 1988, he's a failing comedian, and once again finds himself in the chemical factory, but this time he gets scared into the acid. In Batman the Animated Series, he was a hired slayer first. It kind of really depends on what the writers want to do.
Wolverine. He's the very best at what he does, but what he does isn't very nice. But how did he get so good? And why is what he does not very nice? When we first got to know Wolverine in the comics, his life was shrouded in mystery. That was what made him such a fascinating figure. But like all good characters that have been around for 50 years or more, eventually his origin story had to come out. That's where we begin our journey through his history. His retconned origins, often referred to by the name of the comic it was featured in, Wolverine Origins. Wolverine was born James Howlett. He grew up in Alberta, Canada, and was known for being a rather sickly child. He grew up playing alongside his childhood companions, Dog, the son of the groundskeeper, a rough kid with a rough life, as his extremely mean father was often drawn to drinking, bouts of anger, and mistreating him, taking out his anger at the world and his place in it on his son. And Rose, a young girl who had been brought to the Howlett estate from the village to act as a playmate for young James, because she was around the same age as him. Rose had distinct red hair and ended up becoming James's first love. This was where his love of redheads began. James's powers manifested on one tragic night where both his mother and father had lost their lives.
These iconic champions. From harrowing tragedies to unimaginable trials, join us as we delve into the shocking and unforgettable superhero origin stories that challenge our very perceptions of heroism and resilience. My name is AJ Spatola with Top 10 Nerd, and these are the top 10 brutal superhero origin stories we can't believe happened. At number 10 is Black Bolt. Black Bolt, aka Blackagar Boltagon, yup, that's his actual name, had an undeniably tough start. Exposed to the Terrigen mists while still in the womb, he gained a staggering power, a voice capable of toppling buildings and even obliterating entire worlds. His arrival into the world wasn't subtle. His mere cries crumbled the structure around him when he was born. But from the moment of birth, Black Bolt was treated not as a person, but as a weapon of mass destruction. Isolation was his fate until the age of 19, and he was forbidden to utter a single word due to his uncontrollable power, spending the first 2 decades of his life in absolute silence. Now let's take a moment here to appreciate the image of a grown Black Bolt decked out in a superhero outfit, sitting in his isolation chamber. I mean, come on dude, casual attire is an option. I mean, even the Joker doesn't wear purple at the Arkham Asylum. If you're enjoying this video so far, you can support this channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. Really appreciate it. At number 9 is Rorschach. Rorschach's backstory reads like a descent into a nightmarish abyss. A childhood entrenched in squalor, with a mother who lived a life of night walking set the tone for his grim trajectory. Bullied at school, Rorschach's retaliation marked his entry into the world of crime. But it was a chance encounter with a shifting, enigmatic dress that catalyzed his transformation. Crafting his ink-blotted mask, he embraced the persona of Rorschach. In the world of vigilanteism, he crossed paths with Night Owl and the other Watchmen, but a horrifying case left an indelible scar. Investigating a girl's abduction, he stumbled upon an unspeakable brutality. Her remains had been fed to dogs. His retribution was unflinching, handcuffing the perpetrator amidst flames, and a gruesome ultimatum pushed the boundaries of his morality. As time went on, the line between Rorschach and Walter Korvax blurred. His mask became his face, obscuring his true self. In a twisted metamorphosis, Korvax perished and Rorschach emerged. This brutal origin story epitomizes the haunting complexity of Watchmen's characters, where darkness begets something darker. At number 8 is Red Hood. The only thing more tragic than Jason Todd's backstory is the fact that the decision to end his character was the result of a vote by fans via telephone poll. Born into Gotham and raised as the second ever Robin to Bruce's Batman, Todd's journey into heroism wasn't paved by rose petals. He met a tragic fate at the hands of the Joker when Batman's notorious nemesis whacked him mercilessly with a crowbar and left him strapped next to a bomb. Todd's demise marked the stark divergence from your typical heroic tragedy. Miraculously surviving his grim fate via some mystic shenanigans, probably involving the Lazarus Pit, he returned with a newfound edginess, embracing a more anti-hero persona as the Red Hood, which, by the way, is the Joker's original moniker. This gritty transformation challenges the traditional archetype of a superhero, delving into the complexities of vengeance, morality, and blurred lines. It seems that the darkest of beginnings can give rise to the extraordinary, if not unconventional, champions. At number 7 is Spider-Man. Spider-Man's origin story is a gripping tale of tragedy and transformation. Orphaned at an early age, he was raised by his Uncle Ben and Aunt May, growing up with a resilient spirit despite being bullied for his intellect and physicality. The twist, however, arrives when a radioactive spider bite grants him superpowers, turning Peter Parker into the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But the heart-wrenching moments don't stop there. The weight of responsibility intensifies when Uncle Ben is eliminated, largely due to Peter's inaction. See, because he got ripped off after winning his wrestling gig, he didn't mind when the place got robbed. Not until the robber went on to pew-pew his uncle in the street outside. This shattering loss becomes a driving force, propelling Spider-Man to navigate his dual life of newfound gravity. The web-slinger evolves from a carefree teen to a vigilant guardian, learning that great power demands great responsibility. At number 6, Daredevil. Daredevil, the man without fear, but with a lot of misfortune. Meet Matt Murdock. Picture a young Murdock full of good intentions attempting to save a pedestrian, but fate had other plans for him. At this moment, a radioactive substance blinds him. Not exactly a radioactive spider bite, but hey, it's Marvel. And then it gets even darker. His dad, just a hard-working boxer, ends up in the crosshairs of some ruthless gangsters. Murdock Sr. takes the fall, leading young Matt down a path of vengeance. But then it gets even worse. His love interest, Karen Page, she takes a dark turn too, selling out Daredevil's secret identity while under the influence, only then to be by the sadistically accurate Bullseye. Ouch. So here's Daredevil's origin in a nutshell. Blinded, avenging his father, dealing with loss, and grappling with betrayal. No wonder the guy's got issues. His life is like a masterclass in tragic backstories. At number 5 is The Flash. You know, when it comes to superhero origin stories, we often expect a certain level of tragedy. But Barry Allen's tale took an unexpected twist. You see, back in the day, his mother's fate wasn't the driving force behind his superhero persona. No, she was just in a coma for a little while. But then Crisis on Infinite Earths happened, things got shifted around, and suddenly, Barry's life became a roller coaster of sorrow. Enter Flash Rebirth, where the writers decided, hey, let's pile on that trauma. Now, Nora, Barry's mom, didn't just fade away quietly. No, she was brutally... And guess who's to blame? Yup, his own dad. Imagine that. But the plot gets even juicier, as we can all blame the time-meddling antics of Eobard Thawne, aka Reverse Flash. This guy goes back in time, torches Barry's home, and impales Nora, all just to mess with Barry's head. Talk about holding a grudge across timelines. It's like a soap opera with capes. At number 4 is Wolverine. Wolverine's origin story is like a psychological roller coaster that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. The dude's life is a series of unfortunate events that would make Lemony Snicket's eyebrows raise in surprise. Imagine being a sickly kid only to have your mutation pop up right after your real dad eliminates your foster dad. Then in a fit of rage-fueled vengeance, you off your biological father, leading your mom to think, oh, that's it for me, and take her own exit. Our angsty protagonist bolts with his buddy Rose, hoping to catch a breather. Just your regular tale of friendship and healing, right? Wrong. Cue his half-brother's dramatic entrance and oops, Logan's blades accidentally find their way into poor old Rose. I mean, come on, talk about life kicking you when you're down. At number 3 is Silver Surfer, a character steeped in cosmic tragedy. Norrin Rad, hailing from the planet Zen-La, has an origin that's nothing short of gut-wrenching. Forced by the cosmic juggernaut Galactus, who thrives on consuming entire worlds, Rad becomes Galactus' herald. This means sourcing the cosmos for energy-rich planets to satisfy his master's insatiable hunger. At first, it doesn't seem too terrible, just avoid planets with intelligent life, right? But such planets are rare, and as guilt piles up, leaving Galactus to inhabited worlds, the Silver Surfer's sanity begins to fray. Galactus, recognizing this, stifles Rad's emotions, reducing him to a mere husk. Imagine being shackled to his cosmic master's whims, his vibrant self buried under cosmic servitude. It's a tale of sacrifice, remorse, and the battle for identity woven into the fabric of the universe. At number 2, the Incredible Hulk. When we delve into the origin story of the Hulk, the surface level equation of Bruce Banner plus gamma radiation might seem straightforward, but the story goes much deeper. Sure, exposure to gamma radiation plays a pivotal role in his transformation, but why the emotional roller coaster once he's green? The answer is as complex as Bruce's psyche. Unraveling the threads leads us to Bruce's tumultuous past and the haunting figure of his father, Brian. Brian Banner's exposure to gamma radiation triggered a genetic alteration that echoed down the family tree, affecting Bruce as well. Yet it's not just the altered genes that shaped the Hulk's fury. Brian wasn't just a victim of radiation, he was a tormentor and abuser. He was a tormentor. His malevolent actions scarred Bruce's childhood. The emotional turmoil and the inability to control his anger stem from these deep-rooted traumas. The Hulk isn't just a product of scientific mishaps, it's the manifestation of the interplay between genetics and psychological wound, a stark reminder that our origins can't be boiled down to a simple formula. And at number 1, Batman. Batman, the very mention of his name conjures up thoughts of darkness, brooding nights, and a city in need of a savior. But peel back the layers of his iconic persona and you'll uncover a profoundly tragic origin story that's etched into the annals of pop culture history and into every single one of his movies. Picture this, a young Bruce Wayne, innocent and wide-eyed, out for a faithful night with his parents. Suddenly, tragedy strikes in the form of a dark alley and the chilling sound of pew pew pew. His parents, pillars of hope, fall before his eyes, victim of this heartless act. The impact of that moment is immeasurable, and it carves a permanent scar in his soul. Now, despite being left with wealth beyond measure and a loyal butler in the name of Alfred, Bruce is burdened with unrelenting emptiness. His life goal becomes an unending quest to rid Gotham of its malevolent underbelly, driven by an unwavering desire for justice and vengeance. The Bat was born from the ashes of that night, a symbol of the darkness that took so much from him and the light he aims to restore, proving that even in the harshest crucibles of fate, heroes can emerge with unyielding strength and unwavering determination. These stories serve as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the capacity to endure unfathomable suffering, and the power to transform adversity into inspiration. So the next time you witness a superhero soaring through the skies, just remember the incredible journeys that led them there. Journeys that we can hardly believe happened.
A number of villains were created specifically for the 1966 Batman show, Egghead being one of them. He is an egotistical, egg-obsessed man whose brain is too big for his head, which is why it's so long. This man is pretty exceptional. He was a professor at Gotham Academy. He eventually turned to a life of crime, working with the likes of the Riddler. It's unclear why he stepped into villainhood. Maybe one day he just cracked. During his villain activities, he met a woman and fell in love, but she didn't want to marry until Egghead was better off financially, so he hatched a plan to take over the city. This did not go over easy for him, and he was foiled by Batman. He later tried to hatch a dinosaur, which Batman did not omelet that slide and defeated him again. He's gone from the screen to the page to the big screen in various cameos. Egghead is one of the only villains to figure out that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Due to the enormous expense of the heroes, he used clues about Batman's mannerisms to make the connection. One of my personal irrational fears is that my atoms and whatever I'm currently touching's atoms will line up perfectly and I will be painfully fused into whatever that thing is. In our world, I know that's not scientifically possible, but in the Marvel universe, it seems to be. Maybe. In Spidey's Super Stories 8, Spider-Man encounters a man fused with a wall, making him the Wall. He was a regular kid until an accident at work permanently altered his being. The accident being an entire brick wall coming crashing down on him. It's not really explained how he fuses with the bricks, but the only semi-plausible reason I can think of is their atoms lining up, which hopefully they'll line up again and he can be freed. We only see him in Spidey stories, but he was based on a character created for the Electric Company TV show. The Spidey Super Stories and the show went hand in hand. The show was designed to entice kids to practice speech and writing, as were the Spidey comics. Marvel provided Spidey to the channel for free, and he wasn't the only big name there. Morgan Freeman and Rita Moreno starred as well. As for the Wall, we don't see him again until a profile on the Marvel Strike Force website goes up. Batman's valet, Alfred, is a saint and deserves nothing but good things. So why did the creators of Detective Comics feel the need to crush him with a boulder, have his body kidnapped and experimented on, and brought back to life Frankenstein style, turning him into a villain wanting to kill his family? I don't get it. After the experiments are done on his near-dead body, his mind and body have been twisted into reverse, so all the love he felt for Batman and Robin is now hatred for Batman and Robin. The Outsider is a physically separate being from Alfred. Alfred is stuck in a coma-like state. In the final battle between the Outsider and Robin, Batman figures out how to get Alfred back to normal. The unfortunate part is that the Outsider is still inside Alfred and every once in a while comes out again. Marvel creates some interesting characters, like an elf hitman. His name is Melf, M-E-L-F, but his alias is Elf with a Gun, and that's it, that's what he is. It seems that he's part of a bigger group, Elves with Guns. We don't know where he's from officially, but the Elves with Guns are agents for the Tribunals, a force dedicated to preserving order in the universe. Melf was a weird guy. He would go around offing random people and he was never caught. He was only stopped because he was run over by a truck. His nephew Ralph then took up his undisclosed mission. However, if we look at him like he was working for the Tribunals, then maybe his victims weren't as random. This would be a great and easy to follow explanation for everything, which is why it has been disproven. Turns out the Tribunals were fake, and we are once again back to wondering why a killer elf was roaming the streets. The Phantom Stranger has led a lot of lives, literally. One might be canon now, but it's only a matter of time before someone else grabs the pen and messes with his history. His current origin in the New 52 story is that he was Judas, betrayer of Jesus, and that makes him one of the greatest sinners that has ever lived. Another is that he was a fallen angel who didn't pick a side during the Heavenly War. Another is that he was Isaac from the Bible story. Not exactly the same though. This time his son died because King Herod was looking for Jesus, and now Isaac hates Jesus and later tore him. Another is that he was spared during biblical times but didn't want to be, but the angels didn't want to let him in heaven, so he has to walk the earth alone forever. And the fourth is that he was actually one of the last remaining parts of our previous universe. At the final curtain, he approaches those studying the end and passes a part of himself onto a new person, so when the universe is reborn, they get a Phantom Stranger too. In addition to his many backstories, it is also up in the air as to whether or not he is a villain. To me, I think he started out as a villain. He did betray Jesus in at least a few of these, but later realized the error of his ways and became a sort of hero. Lots of people just choose to ignore many New 52 storylines, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see what sticks for Phantom. Phantom Stranger is now connected to a villain called Question, but that wasn't always the case. Question at one point was a character that was thought to be a supernatural power, thought to be because it was never made clear. One of the only things that is now considered canon about him is that he has committed a crime bad enough to be considered one of 3 of the world's greatest sinners, part of the trio of sin with Phantom. We never know this guy's name. Before being turned into Question, the guy was obsessed with power and having his name feared by all. As his punishment, he got his face taken away and he can no longer remember himself or his name. This was introduced in the New 52. Before that, he was just an alter ego of Vic Sage, but then Flashpoint caused them to separate and even have a brand new different history thing going on. This version of him isn't that bad. He just really wants to know who he is. He also shares a name with a Taylor Swift song. It's all very confusing. I am hoping that we will eventually get a name reveal out of him, whether he's another universe version of an existing Marvel villain, or if he's really a historical figure. Identity theft and retcons have led to quite a confusing backstory for Zorn. Zorn's debut was in New X-Men Annual 2001, and at the end, he was revealed to be Magneto in disguise. Only he wasn't. Later it was revealed that it was actually Zorn pretending to be Magneto pretending to be Zorn, and Zorn was being controlled by someone named Sublime to foster mutant hatred in the world. Easy to follow. At the end of the Magneto identity theft fight, Zorn dies, but not really. His body is done for, but his essence was still around through his connection to Sublime, so he came back. The creator of Zorn in 2001 always intended for Zorn to be Magneto, actually Magneto, so when you read the story, there are hints to it the whole way through. It was because the editors liked Zorn's character, and Marvel wanted Magneto alive so they could use him again, that the confusing aspect of his story was born. Zorn also has a twin brother with very similar powers to him, so sometimes Zorn returns, but it's Zorn 1, or it's not Zorn 1, and it's actually Zorn 2. It's a whole thing. Duela Dent's origin is confusing because she wants it to be. She is a pathological liar when it comes to her family tree. She is claimed to be the daughter of the Joker, Catwoman, the Riddler, the Penguin, Scarecrow, and Two-Face, and even more. She was first introduced as the Joker's daughter, but her last name is Dent, the same name belonging to Harvey Dent, or Two-Face. So now she is known as Two-Face's daughter for a while, until Robin figures out she's not the right age to be his daughter. She agrees and then just disappears. She appeared in the Teen Titans comic series, and she was planned to be revealed as a time traveler that gets reality warped one too many times and is driven insane. Unfortunately, we never got to see this as the comics were cancelled. Technically, Duela doesn't want to be a villain, but she does fight a lot of heroes and lies all the time. She was later revealed to actually legit be the daughter of another universe Joker and Three-Face, a female variation of Two-Face. Is this a lie? Maybe you can literally never know what's real in these universes anymore. Turns out, neither can Duela. It's suggested that because her mind was warped so much, every time she switched Earths, her consciousness switches slightly as well, which is why she's named so many different parents. She was just confused. The Joker is one of the most iconic villains of all time, so it's no wonder so many people want to leave their mark on his story. Unfortunately, that makes for a pretty messed up, twisted, confusing history. One thing is common: he ends up in acid and comes out looking like that. Who he was before, and even during the swim, is up to whoever is holding the pen. In 1951's Detective Comics 168, the Joker had been the Red Hood, also a criminal, and one night he decided to rob a factory. He escaped by swimming through the pool of chemical wastes, and I genuinely think he thought he would come out normal. He didn't, and to his delight figured out his new look was scary and used it to his advantage. In later versions, like The Killing Joke in 1988, he is a failing comedian and once again finds himself in the chemical factory, but this time he gets scared into the acid. In Batman the Animated Series, he was a hitman first. In the very recent and Oscar-worthy interpretation from Joaquin Phoenix is that he didn't fall in the acid yet. His look is just makeup and he has a neurological disorder that makes him randomly laugh. There is another movie coming up with Lady Gaga as Harley, so maybe the acid will make an appearance then too. Time for the big guy, the MCU's newest big bad wolf and my never-ending headache, Kang the Conqueror. One thing seems to generally stay consistent: every version of Kang starts out as Nathaniel Richards. Where Nathaniel comes from? We have options. There was a Nathaniel from Earth 616 that brought peace to Earth 6311 when he traveled there. This made him a big deal. He was known as the legendary benefactor. But he wasn't the Nathaniel native to the planet, so another Nathaniel was eventually born. This Nathaniel was maybe descended from the great benefactor himself, or Dr. Doom. This Nathaniel's history was messed up by another him, causing him to be a good guy for a while. Nathaniel grows up and is bored, so he travels back in time to Earth 616's ancient Egypt. His plans? Be king. Eventually he tries to return home after losing some fights, but is caught in a time storm and transported ahead to the 40th century Earth 6311. The future is a mess, they are at war again, and the people have regressed into barbarians. Nathaniel has found the perfect group to take over. This is the first time he takes on the name Kang the Conqueror. He took his name and ran, conquering Earth 6311, that galaxy, and then trying to attack Earth 616. He wanted more power, but there was also a historical record that said that eventually a celestial Madonna was going to give birth to the most powerful entity ever, and Kang wanted to be their dad. This was the confusing origin of one version of Kang, but generally considered to be the base Kang, kind of. There are so many versions of him under a variety of names: Nathaniel, Kang, Immortus, Scarlet Centurion, Victor Timely, Mr. Griffin, Prime Kang, and Kang the Conglomerator. In the MCU, Vision's origin is honestly pretty easy to follow. Can't say the same for whatever is happening in the comics. In the comics, Vision came from the original Human Torch, aka the first artificial man ever created, and Ultron was responsible for constructing Vision. It was later discovered that the Human Torch Ultron got his hands on wasn't the original, it was a temporal replica that was generated using the Forever Crystal. Because of this, Vision wouldn't activate, and Ultron was forced to bring in the OG Human Torch's creator into the mix, forcing him to fix Vision. The brain of Wonder Man was used to do that, so he is the Human Torch and Wonder Man, while also not truly being either, so there you go. Next is the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, because they just can't seem to catch a break. So when it comes to their origins, and no matter which one you look at, there are still a million questions. So for the longest time, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were the children of Magneto. His wife Magda had been pregnant with twins when she disappeared, and it's not hard to believe that Magneto, one of the most powerful mutants alive, would be the father of a powerful witch and speedster. Now, that origin has been retconned, something many Marvel readers hate, but even if it wasn't, there are still some questions I need answered. Like, why were Magda's twins delivered by an evolved cow? Why was that the choice? Now that this origin has been retconned, who and where are the twins that Magda gave birth to? The current story with Wanda and Pietro is that they were the children of Natalia, the sister of the couple that ended up caring for the twins. The High Evolutionary kidnapped the twins from this couple and experimented on them, making them appear as regular mutants. Then they were returned. This is still pretty new for an origin. For decades, Wanda and Pietro were Magneto's kids, so it's taking some getting used to. At least Magneto still sees them as his children, even if it's not by blood. North Star's life is so wild, it's almost like they used a random job generator and just like ran with it. The guy has joined the circus, a Quebec separatist this group, Alpha Flight, which is Canada's super team, and he's an Olympic skiing champion. He is also a twin. However, he didn't find that out until much later in life because when they were children, their parents got into a crash and passed on. They were separated and Northstar ended up being adopted, only for his adoptive parents to also pass in an accident, and at that point, I would personally start asking questions. Someone has to have it out for you. In adulthood, the twins were reunited and it was so nice, but then they were contacted by Loki, who told them that they were part elf, so they spent some time thinking that they were elves. It wasn't true though. Loki lied, and that's that. Forever Man is maybe the first mutant to ever exist, and yet he doesn't seem to have made any mark on the Marvel fandom. Don't get me wrong, Forever Man has done a lot of stuff, but for a guy that has had since the beginning of time, he really hasn't amassed a large following. Forever Man, whose mutant power is regeneration. If he passes, he just comes back to life as a child, allegedly with no memories of his past lives. However, that might not be true anymore. He claims to have had 10,000 names in his lifetime. Apparently, his memories were reawakened after a particularly grueling passing. Then he met the Avengers, and when they couldn't help him stop his mutant ability, he flew himself into the sun. But that only caused him to be stuck in a constant resurrection cycle until he exploded back to Earth as a kid again, and we don't really know if he remembers who he is after that point because we don't really see him again. I believe his last appearance was Avengers 218 from 1982. Is he still around? He should be. As long as the Earth spins, he's around. We actually don't really know where he even came from. My favorite thing he ever did though, in one of his lifetimes, he accidentally almost made the entire United States country disappear when he tried erasing Captain America from existence. Have you ever wanted to read about an elf with lots of firepower and almost no consistent backstory? Then boy, do I have the character for you. His name is Melf, M-E-L-F, but his alias is Elf with a weapon, and that's it. That's what he is. It seems that he is part of a bigger group, elves with weapons. We don't know where he's from officially, but the elves are supposed to be agents for the Tribunals, a force dedicated to preserving order in the universe. Melf was a weird guy and would go around offing random people, and he was never caught. He was only stopped because he was run over by a truck. His nephew, Ralph, then took up his undisclosed mission. However, if he was working for the Tribunals, then maybe his victims weren't random, and wouldn't that be a great and easy to follow explanation? So of course that was retconned. Doctor Strange claims that the Tribunals were fake, and we are once again back to wondering why the elves even exist. Retcons and identity theft have led to quite a confusing backstory for Zorn. Zorn's debut was in New X-Men Annual 2001, and at the end he was revealed to be Magneto in disguise. Only he wasn't. Later it was revealed that it was actually Zorn, pretending to be Magneto, pretending to be Zorn, and Zorn is being controlled by someone named Sublime to foster mutant hatred in the world. At the end of the Magneto identity theft fight, Zorn dies, but not really. His body is done for, but his essence was still around through his connection to Sublime, so he came back. The creator of Zorn in 2001 always intended for Zorn to be Magneto, actually Magneto, so when you read that story, there are hints to it the whole way through. It was because the editors liked Zorn's character and Marvel wanted Magneto alive so they could use him again that the confusing aspect of his story was born. Zorn also has a twin brother with very similar powers to him, so sometimes Zorn returns, but it's Zorn 2. What is it with Marvel and twins? Up next, Cable, or Nathan Summers, because what's even going on there? He is the son of Cyclops and Jean Grey, but his birth was kind of orchestrated by Mr. Sinister after he discovered that the two X-Men would produce a super powerful offspring if given the chance. Sinister wanted to use this offspring to defeat Apocalypse, but then he ran into a bit of a problem when Jean seemingly passed away. She was actually just at the bottom of Jamaica Bay, so he created a clone of her, Madeline Pryor. She was the one who married Scott and had a kid with him, and then somehow, after that is when everything really hit the fan. Jean Grey appeared alive, Scott left his family, little Cable was kidnapped, and all records of him were erased from existence. A psi bond was created between him and his sister, Rachel Summers, from an alternate reality, and then we had that huge battle in New York where Madeline tried using all the littles to open up a portal. It didn't work. Then Nathan was kidnapped again and infected with a virus that couldn't be cured in the present, so obviously he was sent 2,000 years into the future. And then in the future, he was cloned because they were worried they couldn't cure him after all. Apocalypse claimed to be that clone and kidnapped, I guess, baby him to raise to be a host body when he needs it. Cable just has all the spots on the Marvel bingo filled out. Time travel, cloned, super parents that were also cloned, evil self, kidnapped, and that is only the beginning. Being introduced to Eric the Red, and particularly his choice of outfit, is not something I will ever forget, because what is going on there? Scott Summers created this fake identity, Eric the Red, so he could infiltrate a villain organization, and that's fair, that makes sense, but then Marvel made a real Eric the Red that isn't Cyclops, but he wears the same outfit, and the outfits are very specific, so how did Scott even get it? There seems to be no correlation between the two other than the identity name, so whatever that means. Kang is mine, and now it seems the MCU's biggest headache. One thing seems to generally stay the same for him. Every version of Kang starts out as Nathaniel Richards. Where Nathaniel came from though, well, we have options. There was a Nathaniel from Earth 616 that brought peace to Earth 6311 when he traveled there. This made him a big deal. He was known as the legendary benefactor, but he wasn't the Nathaniel native to that planet, so another Nathaniel was eventually born. This Nathaniel was maybe descended from the great benefactor himself or Doctor Doom. This Nathaniel's history was messed up by another him, causing him to be a good guy for a while. Nathaniel grows up and is bored, so he travels back in time to Earth 616's ancient Egypt to be king. Eventually, he tries to return home, but is caught in a time storm and transported ahead to the 40th century, Earth 6311. The future is a mess. They are at war, and the people have regressed into barbarians. Nathaniel has found the perfect group to conquer. This is the first time he takes on the name Kang the Conqueror. He conquers Earth 6311, that galaxy, and then tries to attack Earth 616. He wanted more power, but there was also a historical record that said that eventually a celestial Madonna was going to give birth to the most powerful entity ever, and Kang wanted to be their dad. This was the confusing origin of one version of Kang, but generally considered to be the base Kang, kind of. There are a lot of things in the Marvel Universe that give me headaches, but Shatterstar's origin is really something special. The man is somehow the son and the father of fellow X-Men Longshot. How does that happen? Well, Shatterstar was sent back in time to the Mojoverse, which we will cover in a second because that is all so weird, but he was sent back in time. He was experimented on in the past, and his DNA was used to create Longshot, so therefore, he is Longshot's father. Years down the road, Longshot and Dazzler have a baby, and that baby was Shatterstar. And guess what? Shatterstar helped deliver that baby. That makes Shatterstar Longshot's father and son and his own grandfather and midwife. Because Marvel can't seem to relax, they decided that Longshot and Dazzler would forget the pregnancy ever happened, and Shatterstar was launched 100 years into the future. The guy lived in Mojo World, a realm where TV basically controls everything. Shatterstar lived here for a long time, competing in arenas. It's where he learned to become a warrior. Then he escaped to Earth, where he was a founding member of X-Force, and then at one point we find out that Shatterstar was maybe split in half or just had a twin. His name was Benjamin Russell, and he was in a coma the minute his powers manifested, but looked exactly like Shatterstar and was his other half. The two were eventually combined, which left Shatterstar feeling whole again. So that's him.
In at 10, Matter Eater Lad. In his first appearance, Matter Eater Lad reveals his origins, sharing that the people of Bismol developed the unique ability to eat all matter as a means of survival when microbes rendered their food inedible. This adaptation granted them incredible strength and durability in his teeth and jaws, enabling him to bite and chew through even the toughest of substances, similar to Superboy Mon-El's abilities. Matter Eater Lad's mother is named Mitz Kem, and his father is Raul, who surprisingly uses Tenzil's LSH stipend to buy groceries, as depicted in the Hapless Hero in Action Comics number 381, despite both being Bismolians. There was actually a person with this power in real life, if you can believe it. This dude would eat light bulbs and bolts and actually ended up getting eating a whole bike and a whole plane from what I can remember. He was called Mr. Eats All if you want to look him up. In at 9, Flaming Carrot. The legend of the Flaming Carrot begins with a man who, after reading an astonishing 5,000 comics in one sitting to win a bet, suffered brain damage and emerged as the enigmatic hero known as the Flaming Carrot. Somehow. Living in Palookaville, a neighborhood in Iron City, the Carrot has faced off against multiple alien invasions. He's thwarted a communist takeover, encountered flying dead dogs, battled the Man in the Moon, outwitted death itself, and even confronted a cloned army of Hitlers. Devoid of conventional superpowers, the Flaming Carrot relies on unwavering determination, incredible luck, and a unique brand of absurdity to triumph over his adversaries. Despite experiencing death and resurrection, including a detour in limbo, the Carrot's escapades persist. As a founding member of the Mystery Men, a group of blue-collared superheroes, Flaming Carrot's legacy has endured. Their story was later adapted into the 1999 film Mystery Men and a brief spin-off comic series, but Flaming Carrot doesn't actually appear in that movie. Characters like Mr. Furious, the Shoveler, and Dr. Heller do though, leaving the hero's origins and legend to thrive in their own extraordinary universe. In at 8, Batman Beyond. Amanda Waller, director of Project Cadmus, needed a new Batman to continue the fight for justice, and saw genetic engineering as the solution. She created Project Batman Beyond by using Bruce Wayne's DNA to rewrite a male human's reproductive material, and found a couple in Gotham City with a psychological profile nearly identical to Bruce's parents, the McGinnises. Warren McGinnis was secretly injected with the nanotech solution, and a year later, Terry was born, with half of his mother's genetic material and half of Bruce's. To complete Terry's decision to become a crime fighter, Amanda planned to have that same trauma that inspired Bruce to become Batman to happen to Terry. After a night at the theater watching The Grey Ghost Strikes, Amanda and the Phantasm go to Terry's parents to kill them. However, the Phantasm refuses to go along with the plan and allows the McGinnises to escape and be unaware of what might have happened. Terry later on did actually become the new Batman, but hey, having your dad's genetic material rewritten with a crime fighter, yeah, I'm gonna say that that's pretty weird. And at 7, The Cloud. After joining the Defenders, Cloud struggled with understanding their true origins. Complicating matters, they developed feelings for their teammate Moondragon, who was subtly using telepathic signals to manipulate others. Cloud's confusion led them to shapeshift into Danny Milligan's form, hoping to be a more suitable form for Moondragon, but this adds to the mystery surrounding Cloud's identity and just life in general, because they are a freaking cloud that will shapeshift into naked humans. In time, Cloud regained their complete memories and led the Defenders on a space mission to prevent the Star Thief from harming their family, and with their memories restored, Cloud embraced their rightful place in the cosmos, finding clarity and purpose once again. Most recently, now preferring the pronoun they, Cloud reappeared as a member of Doctor Strange's New Defenders. While the Defenders were in the fourth cosmos, Cloud stayed behind and journeyed into the mystery. Cloud then encountered a new version of the Defenders as they were traveling through the mystery, specifically the land of couldn't be, shouldn't be. And at 6, The Creeper. Jack Ryder, a former resident of Gotham City, finds himself fired from his political talk show when he fearlessly criticized his sponsors and refused to back down. Recognizing his detective skills, Chief of Network Security Bill Brain offered Ryder a job as an investigator. Ryder's first assignment involved locating Dr. Yatz, a scientist captured by a local gangster, Angel Devlin, who is collaborating with communist powers. To infiltrate Devlin's masquerade party, Ryder seeks a disguise at a costume shop where he improvises a unique outfit with yellow lights, green trunks, red gloves and boots, with yellow makeup, a green wig. It's really weird. He even has like a sheepskin rug as a cape. Ryder completes his bold ensemble, and then at the party he confronts Devlin's henchmen and rescues Dr. Yatz, but not without being injured. In a twisted turn of fate though, Dr. Yatz injects Ryder with a chemical serum that enhances his healing, strength, and stamina, but also implants a tiny device under his skin capable of rearranging molecular structures and rendering his suit basically invisible until needed. But the comic explanation is that he can switch between his skin and his costume that he wore to the party at will, which is all kinds of strange. Halfway through into number 5, Ultra Boy. Jonah, known as Ultra Boy and hailing from the planet of Rimbor, is a member of the Legion of Superheroes with a wide array of powers, but he can only use one of them at at a time due to his physical limitations. Originally, Joe was part of a gang called the Emerald Dragons on the seedy world of Rimbor. While traveling in his space speedster, not that kind of speedster, he was swallowed by an energy blast, a monstrous whale-like creature that devoured any life form in its path. Luckily, the Galactic Patrol cruiser saved him by cutting open the creature with a ray, but the radiation charged Joe's body, granting him incredible abilities like X-ray vision and more. Embracing his newfound powers, he became Ultra Boy and joined law enforcement efforts, leading him to be recommended for the Legion of Superheroes. At some point, Joe was thrown back in time to the 20th century and teamed up with Superboy, merging their minds to become Reflecto, but eventually he returned to the 30th century and continued his adventures as Ultra Boy in a Ford Ghost Rider. Johnny Blaze's parents were famous motorcycle stars alongside Craig Crash Simpson, who became like a father figure to Johnny after their death. Taught by Crash, Johnny was expected to carry on the legacy, but he resisted, disappointing his girlfriend Roxanne. When Crash fell terminally ill, Johnny delved into the occult in desperation to save him. He unwittingly summoned Mephisto, whom he struck a deal with to cure Crash's cancer in exchange for his eternal servitude in hell. Despite the deal though, Crash died shortly after, attempting a dangerous stunt. Grieving and seeking to honor his foster father, Johnny attempted the same stunt, but nearly lost his soul to Mephisto, and then he becomes Ghost Rider. Getting close to the end in number 3, Fat Man the Human Flying Saucer. Van Crawford, a wealthy owner of hobby shops and a hobby expert, stumbled upon a crashed flying saucer one day. To show gratitude for his assistance, the shape-shifting alien inside granted Van a drink that tasted like a chocolate milkshake, but was actually the substance used by the alien's race to transform into saucers. Now, possessing that same power, Van adopted the persona of Fat Man and fought evil with his newfound abilities. Along the way, he gained a teenage sidekick of Tin Man, who could coat himself in tin because of magic, and Fat Man's adventures led him to become the temporary king of Octagonia, a title obtained by spending $25,000, oblivious to the actual nature of the acquisition. If you're gonna be called Fat Man the Human Flying Saucer and your only power is to turn into a flying saucer and you're other than that just rich? Weird. But ultimately, in at number 2, Doorman. Dermar Davis, an ordinary American youth, experienced a personal tragedy when his mother passed away during his college years. After completing his education, Dermar responded to Dr. Immortal's call for costumed adventurers to form a team, leading him to join the Great Lakes Avengers. As a mutant with a remarkable teleportation ability, he became an invaluable asset to the team, providing them with stealthy entrances and surprising attacks by creating openings into almost any structure. And the reason that this is weird is because, like, yeah, sure, he's a mutant, but a mutant that can become a door? That's weird even by mutant standards. There's a dude covered in eyeballs, for God's sakes. Doorman is a class 10 teleporter, okay, and if you're confused as to what that means, his body is a portal to the Dark Force dimension, allowing for people or items to pass through him and walk through any solid object that the Doorman is standing against. When creating a door through an object, Doorman is often surrounded by floating black spheres that create an outline of his body and like on the opposite side of any object, so they kind of know where they're coming through. But becoming a mutant that turns into doors? Yeah. And finally, in at number 1, Hindsight Lad. Initially met with skepticism by the other New Warriors, Hindsight Lad proved his value when he rescued the team from the clutches of the Poison Memories. Utilizing Speedball's address book, he teamed up with the Night Thrasher to mount a successful rescue mission wherein the core members were captured and sent through time by the Sphinx. With the original New Warriors missing, Hindsight Lad and Bandit formed a new team of heroes called the New Warriors. Carlton LaForge, a computer nerd and misfit, discovered his neighbor Robbie Baldwin's secret identity as Speedball during an apartment crisis caused by Darkling's Dark Force. Carlton, a superhero enthusiast with no powers, demanded to join the team or he would expose Robbie. Reluctantly, Speedball and the New Warriors agreed, and Carlton officially became Hindsight Lad, who has no powers except the power of hindsight, being able to look back and say what they could have done differently. And that's why he's number fucking 1. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, click the video that's popping up on screen now. Jeez, this was a weird one. Is that too meta?